1919 was an auspicious year in history. The First World War ended, ushering a drastic change in the world order. The Philippine Islands had been a U.S. territory for 2 decades and was promised independence under the Jones Law of 1916. Progressive reformers saw the country and its people as a major target for modernization, and education was its main weapon. 7 forward-looking Filipinas came together in 1919 to create a school where young women could gain the knowledge and skills that would make them modern women. Paz Marquez Benitez was the first president of the Philippine Women's College. Jose Abad Santos was its first chairman of the Board of Trustees. Francisca Tirona Benitez was the second president, and with her husband Dean Conrado, guided the school from a house on A. Flores Street to its iconic Taft Avenue campus. In 1932, the college became a university, making PWU the first university for women in Asia founded by Asians. It provided a space where innovations in education flourished, and young people were encouraged to be the best that they could be. For over 100 years, the Philippine Women's University has been known as a leader in quality education. In 1934, PWU moved into its main campus on Taft Avenue, and since the 1970s has been co-educational. Located in the heart of Metro Manila, it is easily accessible by public transport and surrounded by affordable housing. Today's PWU offers undergraduate and graduate courses in several fields of study. Its business and management programs are responsive to the needs of industry, using evolving technology for global competence. PWU graduates excel in arts and sciences, education, social work, and diplomacy. Its fine arts and music programs have produced outstanding graduates through a holistic education that treasures heritage as well as excellence. PWU has pioneered in fields such as food science, nutrition and dietetics, medical technology, pharmacy, and nursing. PWU continues to play an essential role in producing graduates who possess the skills that make them competitive in the country and anywhere in the world.
Welcome to the PW Doctors of Hospitality Management webinar entitled Tripartite Collaboration of the Academe, Tourism and Hospitality Industry, and the Government. To start with the program proper, let us all pause for a while for our opening prayer, and this will be immediately followed by the singing of the Philippine National Anthem.
Dear Lord, here and now, in the midst of our physical distances, we know and believe that you are near. We praise you for this graced moment to once again gather virtually for the sake of continuing learning processes amidst this pandemic. We call upon you in this time of illness and challenge. We may be tired and sometimes felt worn out by the pressures of the new way of living and where vulnerable lives are threatened. We may be grieving the precious lives of our lost loved ones, but we continue to believe and hold on in your merciful love. It is in your love and your grace that we all entrust the sufferings of our world at this time. Inspire all our leaders to discern and direct course of actions wisely aligned for the common good. Reveal to us new and creative ways to come together in solidarity despite the physical distances. Call us to profound trust in your faithful presence. Breathe within us, among us, and around us. Grant healing and comfort to those who are sick with COVID-19 and grant strength to all healthcare frontliners. May we put our trust completely in you, Lord. Keep us all under the shadow of your healing mercy. And now, as we begin our webinar, guide our thoughts, words, and actions so that we may walk in your path of peace and of love. Make us persevere and endure in this trying time. May we find comfort, knowing that nothing can separate us from your love in Christ Jesus, our Lord. Amen.
Kayang magiliw, pero saan silanganan? Alam ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyat ka ng magiting. Sa manlulupig, di ka pasisiin. Sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong bukaw. May dilagang tulat, awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kisap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagdiligdig. Ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magdidinig. Lupa ng araw ng walhati pagsintabay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya na pag may mga ami ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Pleasant and wonderful day to everyone. Mabuhay, ladies and gentlemen. To all our participants, guests, students, admin officials, and to the rest of the beautiful people, those 1,800 registrants coming from all over the country via Zoom, YouTube, and Facebook Live, mabuhay and welcome to this webinar. In almost 2 years of this great pandemic, and throughout the Philippines' quest for resiliency, safety, economic stability, and continuation of learning, the hospitality and tourism industry is at the forefront of the overwhelming disruption. That is why, in this grand objective of the PW Doctors of Hospitality students under the course Trends and Issues of the Tourism Hospitality Industry, is coming up with this webinar series that focuses on the collaboration and update of the government, industry, and the academy to identify strategies and good practices for the benefit of our country. Thus today, ladies and gentlemen, we are overwhelmed and grateful to be joined by the three of the most respected frontliners and lead innovators of the said three sectors who will be properly introduced throughout the course of this event. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Chef Abram Emmanuel Peralta, and I will be your host and moderator for today. But before we further start our event, let us be reminded with this acronym called PW and U. Again, that is PWU, and that means letter P, put your microphones on mute throughout the rest of the event unless acknowledged by the moderator or the speaker. W, work with technology. Please feel free to use the chat box and reaction button on the Zoom and comment reaction section in FB Live to converse well with the organizers and the speakers as we go throughout the entire event. And you, understand and use the knowledge and new learnings that the speakers will be sharing with us today to further improve our quest in resiliency in the academe, government, and industry. Ladies and gentlemen, again, that is PWU. Again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you everyone for joining us in this event. The Philippine Women's University Graduate School of Hospitality Management warmly welcomes you all in this webinar entitled Tripartite Collaboration of the Academe, the Tourism and Hospitality Industry, and the Government, addressing the issues and challenges of the new normal. To formally start and welcome everyone, may we call on the reason behind the great recognition of the PW School of Hospitality Management. Let us all welcome, and please help me welcome, Dean Eframuel Jose L. Abellana. Dean, the virtual floor is now yours.
Thank you, Chef Ava. A wonderful and good morning, Patriots. To our University President, Mr. Marco Alfredo M. Benitez. To our University Chancellor and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs, Dr. Felina C. Young. And to all our Vice Presidents in our university, chairs, the directors and heads of the different offices in the university, to our esteemed research speakers and frontliners from the government, the industry, and of course the academe sectors. We are humbled and grateful for your time to share your knowledge, wide experiences, and insights for today's topic. I commend the efforts of Dr. Jocelyn Sardenia for your remarkable passion and guidance as a class professor of this batch. Thank you so much, Doc. And my sincerest thank you to my colleagues, our esteemed and dedicated graduate faculty members of the Schools of Tourism and Hospitality Management, Attorney Inigo Piras, Dr. Angelina Blanco, Dr. Erlida Zacarias, Dr. Cristina Caluza, Dr. Edgar Moreno, and Dr. Haji Alegre. And a warmest congratulations, the magnanimous teamwork to the men and women of this batch, our future doctors in hospitality management, led by Amelia, Chef Abram, Eugene, Raymond, Chef, and everyone in the different amazing committees that you have. Continue that strong relationship and camaraderie in your section, in your batch as future doctors of this section, DBHR 611, 10 Trends and Issues in Hospitality and Tourism Management. Our virtual guests here and abroad, friends, students, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, Patriots. I welcome you all to our 12th webinar series. This is our 12th series for the entire semester for this school year 2021-2022. This morning is another milestone and insightful and exciting webinar that we have an opportunity to listen and learn and inform of the thought-provoking talks and topics in store for us from our Power Class 3 speakers, with a significant theme, tripartite collaboration of the academe, hospitality and tourism industry, and government, addressing the issues and challenges in the new normal. Collaboration and industry relationships with the three important sectors in our industry are the ingredients, the key roles that is besetting our country today or even in the global arena, this pandemic or the now normal. Each sector must be working together for the benefit of the whole, in essence. Networking and linkages to each other, to each sector, what we always value because we aim to reach out and achieve our goals and mission of the academe, the private sector, and of course the government. This morning's objectives are the following: strengthen the network and build stronger relationships between university, industry, and government. Number two, recognize the mutual benefit of cooperation and collaboration of the three major pillars in the development of the future leaders in the industry, our tourism and hospitality. And of course, number three, resolves these issues and challenges of the new normal and uplift the spirit of the players of hospitality and tourism industry. Finally, thank you very much, Ms. Mercy Hernandez, of course, our admin assistant, and of course for the technical support ever for the last 18 months of the PW Marketing Department, Ms. Rona Tuanyo, ma'am, our PWICT Department, Sir Michael Ventanil, the department head, and of course the technical team for our Multimedia Center with Sir Vladimir Villamor. Once again, I welcome you all virtually and continue to be safer always. Ignite the passion within you. Good morning, Patriots. Chief Abram, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dean Prime, for that very, very warm welcome. And now, for his inspirational message, it is my pride and pleasure to introduce the reason behind PW's success, the lead innovator and leader himself. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you President Marco Alfredo Benitez, the President of Philippine Women's University.
Dr. Felina Young, University Chancellor and SVPAA, Dean Prime Abellana, Dean of the PW School of Hospitality Management and Tourism, distinguished speakers, our dedicated and hardworking faculty, students and guests watching on our social media pages. Good morning. Last week, we were graced by no less than the country's dynamic Secretary of Tourism, Honorable Secretary Bernadette Romulo Puyat, who gave a keynote address on the challenges and opportunities of the new era of travel and tourism, the tourism sector's ongoing response to the pandemic, and the rise of transformative tourism, one that is more purposeful and promotes positive change in the traveler and is more sustainable for the industry. There is hardly any doubt that the face of travel and tourism has changed as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The tourism industry was among the most severely affected industries globally due to the lockdowns and quarantine protocols imposed by most countries as a form of border control to prevent the entry of the virus. With the uneven rollout of vaccines in 2021 for the majority of the developing world, the Philippines in particular has been severely affected. As a Department of Trade and Industry report indicated that tourist arrivals for the period Jan to June 2021 were down 96% versus the same period last year. The UNWTO back in December 2020 forecasted that a return to 2019 levels would not happen earlier than 2023, while many experts more recently have an even more dire forecast that tourism and travel would not return to pre-pandemic levels until at least 2024 or 2025. A situation this dire makes the tripartite collaboration among the government, the academe, and the hospitality and tourism sectors all the more vital in the face of weak demand, constrained supply, and the constant risk of future lockdowns. For example, clear, concise, science-based, and timely policies on travel and quarantine restrictions give travelers and hospitality and tourism operators alike confidence and peace of mind, as they know what to expect when going to a destination, regardless of how stringent the protocols are. Similarly, a uniform set of protocols per region of the same quarantine classification, which is based on a standard set of metrics, not reliant on each LGU's own discretion, would facilitate and even encourage domestic travel. Also, a unified vaccination database and a globally recognized vaccine passport would do wonders to promote access for inbound and outbound travel, whereas the lack thereof creates confusion and anxiety. When policymakers in government are in tune with private sector players and stakeholders who know and experience what is happening on the ground, and couple this with scientific data, then what arises are policies that are sound, science-based, and credible, which will lead to collaboration and compliance from travelers, customers, and businesses alike. In turn, this synergy and clear direction encourage the academe and its students to promote and pursue careers in hospitality and tourism because, like everyone else, no one likes uncertainty, particularly not students looking for stable and promising careers. This webinar, therefore, looks to promote a more close-knit understanding and collaboration among the academe, government, and private hospitality and tourism industry to help foster such synergies. It aims to explore ways to further strengthen this relationship and identify gaps that need to be addressed, particularly as it relates to the development of future leaders of hospitality and tourism sector to students. Finally, the webinar hopes to discuss current issues and challenges being faced by the sector as a result of the pandemic, but also highlight how the sector has responded to these challenges and identify further opportunities for growth in this new era of travel and hospitality. Congratulations once again to the organizers, and I wish everyone a very informative and engaging session.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, President Benitez, for that sincere and uplifting inspirational message. Ladies and gentlemen, without further delay, to introduce the first speaker, may we call on the virtual floor, Ms. Rhoda May Macalam. Ma'am, the virtual floor is now yours.
Good morning. It is an honor to introduce our first speaker. He is a talent development professional with a solid history in learning and development, with training from both local and multinational firms such as the Capital One and the Intercontinental Hotels Group. He is currently assisting in the management of talent development programs for 7 hotels located throughout the Philippines. He is a director of organizational development and culture, a talent development manager, a training manager in a corporate level of Chroma Hospitality, and he also a cluster talent development, human resources and training manager, learning and development manager, and training manager in a dual role in Holiday Inn Manila Galleria, Crown Plaza Manila Galleria. He is the senior learning and development trainer at Admirex Solutions Incorporated, an associate vice president for training at IRMC, and a corporate development trainer in people support. He graduated his AB in political science from Trinity College of Quezon City and earned a master's degree in training design from Chroma Academy of Brilliance. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. David Romano, sir.
Here comes the sun, little darling. Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. It's alright. Here comes the sun, little darling. Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. Here comes the sun, little darling. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, little darling. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, little darling. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, little darling. Here comes the sun.
Can you hear me? Good morning.
Hi, sir. Yes, you are audible.
Okay. Should I turn on my camera? O, hindi na.
Yes, please. Yes, please. If you may, sir.
Kita yung ano eh. Okay. Good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank the Philippine Women's University Graduate School of Hospitality Management. Yan. Graduate School of Hospitality Management and the organizers of this webinar, especially Dr. Abiliana, Dr. Sardenia, and the president, Mr. Benitez. Also, I'd like to mention Ms. Amelia Galas Bawang, who's been patient with me, coordinating on behalf of the organizers. I represent a Filipino-owned hospitality management company. I spoke in this similar webinar last week, organized by PWU, and I never got to show this video, so I made sure that I show it today. The name of the company is Chrome Hospitality Incorporated, and we manage 7 hotels who thankfully now are all operational, kasi one of our properties was closed for about a month and a half, and our Boracay property was also closed for about a month, no. I also would like to, paano ba to? Ayaw mag-move. Next. I would also like to announce or share with you that last night during the Hospitality Sales and Marketing Association Virtus Awards, our company won a Most Resilient Business Hospitality Group Award. So we won a Virtus Award for being the most resilient hospitality business, recognized by our peers. So let me share to you our experience about the way we do interventions for student training, no, for hospitality students. But let me show you first a few in data about training across the globe, no, in terms of how they are affected by the pandemic. If you will notice in this chart, all continents are affected by the pandemic, no. In fact, Asia and the Pacific, sila lang yung partially, right? But everybody were completely affected by most, if not all, have closed their training schools, no, their training centers, not just for the hospitality industry, but almost all the other industries, all industries that offer student training or student development. In fact, some of them had to depend on whether the office, the company has closed. No? In the case of Armenia, some of them were able to go only if the company was open or operational. For Lithuania, it's the same thing, no? And New Zealand. So the message here is, in these first 2 slides, is we're not alone. This is not particular to the Philippines. No? Every single country had to struggle with the way they can continue training. As I've written in my notes, we had a very simple yet effective talent succession plan before the pandemic. So the freshman students go to the hotel to have a taste of hotel life, hospitality life, through what they call hotel orientation. And then they return as a junior or a senior as they enter into an on-the-job training program or an internship training program. And hopefully those interventions in partnership with the industry will prepare them for a career in hospitality. Also, it will also give them an idea of where they think they would flourish, no, in the many departments within the hotel industry. The obstacles that or the challenges that created by the pandemic I agree with the president earlier, has really changed the way we do things. Not just with business, sales, and marketing, the way we do rooms and operational wise, but it also affected the way we delivered training. This simple and successful succession plan or succession process that we've had before is interrupted. And some of the things that um, made it a challenge for us to continue providing training in during the pandemic is one, the lack of general and technological infrastructure, like in some countries, electricity. This came from the ILO. Internet connectivity, which is a problem that we are experiencing, di ba? Yes, the Academe has available online resources. The hotel may have available online resources, but maybe the student doesn't have that strong internet connectivity at home. Or maybe uh, Academe has a learning management system, but the hotel, the industry doesn't have that advanced technology to cater to students studying in a remote manner. There's also a lack of effective and user-friendly distance learning platforms. Either it's too technical, uh, or it's not. You can't use everything in the system. There's also a lack of staff capacity to support distance learning through quality pedagogical resources. So, what how you deliver training in class is different with the way you deliver training using technology, using virtual platform, right? And sometimes instructors, whether in the academe or in the industry, are just not prepared to deliver the same quality of training using a digital platform. And of course, financial resource constraints. No, this chart shows you the predominant tools. No? So hindi tayo masyadong malayo. We're using the top 5. No, where many of us are using video conferencing between teachers and participants. Many of us are using YouTube. No, YouTube is a very good learning platform in terms of micro learning, and there's a lot of resource in YouTube. No, and I call this learning on demand, which is apt for our situation right now. Developing videos, no, a lot of schools are, if you, it's evident with PWU. You have a lot of internally curated content, no. Sa beginning pa lang ng event, you presented those videos that you created internally. Also creating virtual learning environments, developing new written resources that fits the situation that we have right now. So hindi tayo nalalayo. But I'm telling you, I would like to also tell you that there are new tools available. Like one, the grid. No, the grid is again a good learning platform for micro learning. What the grid does is it collects all the possible resources in. So when you go to the grid, you just type in, it will personalize the learning for you. So it will ask you several questions about your career or what you would like to learn, and then what the grid does is it collects all available resources in the internet, and customizes a series of learnings for you, no, and this is for free. uh, um, Libre siya, no? So if you say that you want to learn about gardening, you want to be a plantita in the future, the grid will collect all learning resources in the internet and give it to you, no, through their platform. Of course, YouTube is another learning platform, but you don't have to go too far. If you have not been cooking and you want to know how to cook sinigang, most likely you'd go to YouTube to learn how to cook sinigang. So it's a learning platform. Facebook is also a great learning platform. I don't know if you know, but the Facebook is equipped with the mentoring capacity, right? You can organize mentoring in Facebook. Um, you also can organize groups, no? I don't know if you've heard of there's a Facebook platform that uh, localized localizes Facebook to your organization para kayong merong local Facebook. But you can also do that, not just create a page, no? Pero ito parang may local Facebook kayo in your organization or in your business. Miro is a great tool also. I don't know if you've heard of Miro. Miro is a great tool for brainstorming, no? If you're into mind mapping, if you're into charts, if you're into collaborative thinking, no, design thinking or agile, Miro is a great tool for that. Padlet is another great tool. It's a more simplified version of Miro. No, so I suggest that you take a picture of this slide and try to go to these websites, to these tools. Powtoon is a great animation maker. You can create cartoons to enhance the learning. Canva is a great tool for creating posters, creating content. No, it's a beautiful site for developing content. And Trello, no, and which is a good tool for managing projects. So there's a lot of available resources aside from what I've mentioned here. Aside from the top 5 being used globally, there's a lot of tools available in the internet. There's a lot of technology that's available that you can use. No, all you have to do is to explore. What do we need to learn from the pandemic? What can we learn from the experience of how to deliver training and development in the time of a pandemic, no? And, to help us move to the better normal, tawag ni Secretary Puyat. We need to move from the new normal to the better normal. Number one, we need to invest on technology that will help deliver training. Diba? I'm so glad that in my company, way before the pandemic, they already bought Microsoft 365. And then we discovered that Microsoft 365 has a lot of apps that we can use to deliver training. Like you can actually create e-learning using Microsoft Sway. You can create a knowledge exam, a knowledge tech using Microsoft Forms, and a lot of other things. No, to this is one of those things that we need to do as a lesson from the pandemic. But not only do we need to buy technology, to invest on technology that will help make our lives easier, but also we need to transform our trainers and trainees into digital natives. No, parang Excel. Ang tagal na ng Excel, but you still don't know how to do pivot tables. You still don't know how to do a lot of the more advanced stuff in Excel. That means you're shortchanging yourself. Available yung technology, but you're not using it to your advantage, right? We need to help our people become comfortable with the use of technology. Increase business sabi. Be intentional. Don't let it parang leave it to chance, no? Make sure that you're intentional about uh, becoming digitally savvy. Um, Also understand that the way you train in face-to-face settings is different from learning in true or a digital platform. Iba yung engagement. Number one, you don't see the faces of parang ngayon. I don't see the reactions of the people, right? So, kung hindi lang maikli yung oras, probably I'll ask you to give me an insight, ask a question. No, maybe I'll ask you to use the emoticons as a reaction. But what I'm telling you is that there's a different set of dynamics involved when you're using technology as your tool to deliver learning and development. There's this thing called massive open online communication or course, di ba? Where you encourage people to chat. No, I last week participated. I was one of the reactors for the Philippine Society of Talent Development National Convention. And one of the speakers was she videotaped her talk. Videotape niya yung talk niya. She videotaped her talk. And then while her talk was being presented, she was chatting with the participants on chat. So parang clone. Parang dalawa siya. While she was talking on video, she was chatting with the participants on chat. That was a good idea and it worked, no? And then last, the difficulty of imparting practical skills by remote learning poses a particular challenge, necessitating investment on new learning methods and allowance of greater flexibility in curriculum development. I think the Commission on Higher Education uh, understands this or agrees with this, that they released CHED Memo number 18. The title is Guidelines for the Conduct of Practicum Activities for Bachelor of Science in Tourism Management and Bachelor of Science in Hospitality Management. If we can't read everything, but one of the highlights of this memo is the guideline number 1, where it says higher education institution offering tourism related programs shall be given flexibility to introduce curricular modifications to their practicum programs from deployment to assess. I think one of our speakers who's from the Academe will talk about flexibility. Pero I completely agree with Chen, right? This is a great time to really explore new ways of delivering learning and development. What worked before may no longer work today. And so I like what Ched is doing, where they are allowing the schools and maybe in partnership with the industry to deliver to create innovation in terms of delivery of training. So let me talk to you about a few initiatives that we have in our company, which let's just say are examples of innovations or flexibility in the way we deliver training. We work with CISFU, Southville International School, for foreign, I think foreign universities, no. And what we did was it's more of a case study type of. So what they requested was give us a program where students will be able to interact with industry practitioners while exploring how the hotel operates, no. So what we did was we created a program where the students can set up a meeting with the hotel leaders. So sila yung makikipag-set ng meeting with the hotel leaders. They will meet with the hotel leaders and find out their pain points. And then the students will present a summary of how they understood the pain points as relayed by the hotel leaders. And then we give them, I think, a month to work on recommendations on how to address these pain points. So iba-iba, merong F&B, merong rooms. I think for Quest Tagaytay, we did what would be a parang special product that Quest Tagaytay can carry. Na parang Colette's, no? Colette's is known for buko pie. No, what would be the buko pie of Quest Tagaytay, di ba? And they presented recommendations. Out of this experience, the students said that they were able to empathize with the situation of the hotel leaders, and they were able to understand it. And I think one of the best experiences that they got was being able to interact with industry practitioners and understand where they're coming from. So parang tumaas yung level ng understanding nila about hospitality operations. So that's one of the things that we did recently, last August to September. And we liked it because number one, it required very little from us. Kasi it's the students doing the legwork. The evaluation guide, the rubric for evaluating student performance comes from the school. The output is favorable to us kasi the output of the research we can use in our strategic plan. And plus, it creates a good reputation. Now we're a good business. The students can see from inside that we're a good business. And then last but not the least is the students can be potential hotel leaders. So we can invite some of the stars of the project maybe to apply and get a position in our company. By the way, contrary to popular belief na konti lang yung openings ngayon, there's really a lot of openings. Because some of the hoteliers that left the industry doesn't want to come back anymore because they found new careers in insurance or online selling or online content development. No? So there's really a lot of openings in trauma alone. There's a lot of openings. No? We also develop. I'm down to my last 3 slides. No? We also develop a program called CHOC, or the Chroma Hospitality Alternative Learning Campus. Kaya lang ito, not like the CISCO project, ito may bayad, no? And under CHOC, we have 3 programs. One is the Hospitality Boot Camp. The target of the Hospitality Boot Camp is for freshman hospitality students. This is meant to replace the hotel orientation. You know, when you bring the students to the hotel to have an experience of what hotel life is. Um, what we do here is the students go to 5 days of online learning. It's a mix of synchronous and asynchronous modules. So merong instructor-led, merong self-paced. It includes a virtual tour of the hotel. The students go through knowledge assessment and interview on the 6th day. And on the 7th day is graduation. And I think this is more intensive than, kasi when you bring them to the hotel, sometimes they don't even listen to the speaker. But this one, they do the modules. Diba? They look at the videos and they do the modules and they have to pass an exam. No? Another program that we created is the Learn and Live Hospitality Skills Program. This is for junior and senior hospitality students. So there's a Learn Week, no? During the Learn Week, they go through 5 days of online learning, either rules division, food and beverage, and it ends with a knowledge assessment. And then there's a Live Week. After they learn, they go to the hotel to stay for 5 days to apply what they learned in rooms division, food and beverage. The students are assigned coaches, and at the end of the 5-day stay, they have a practical assessment. No? So that's why we call it Learn and Live Hospitality, because they learn first, they spend 1 week to learn, and then they spend another 5 days to live out what they learned. No? Of course, this cannot replace the 600 hours of OJT or internship. No? But at least this is what we can do at the moment. No? While a lot of the families are hesitant, no, to send their students to the hotels for internship. Another this is similar to the Learn and Live Hospitality Skills. This time it's Learn and Live Hospitality Safety. Now, where the students go through 5 days of online learning, they study Target Zero. Target Zero is I'll show you a video later. Target Zero is our safety program training to support our culture of clean. And then they get the hotel safety training, they get a food safety management, and it ends with the knowledge assessment. And then after the Learn Week, they go stay with the hotel and apply what they learned. No, for 5 days. Students are assigned coaches, and it ends with a practical assessment. Right? So that's it. So if you forget everything, what I want you to remember is that the situation disrupted a lot of countries in terms of not just in terms of business, but also in terms of training people. And you know that when there's a disruption, there is also an opportunity. And I like that CHED encourages us to take advantage of the opportunity by allowing a lot of leg room or allowing flexibility in the development of learning programs to help students develop even in the time of pandemic. And take advantage of this opportunity. Talk to your industry partners. Ask them, what can we do together? The industry doesn't know completely what your students need, what the students need. So you need to talk to them and to understand how you can have a partnership in developing a program that best fits the needs of the students. So that's it, no? And let me end this talk with a video of our Culture of Clean program, just to show you how much I spoke in this same forum last week, and I told them that more than anything, safety is now number one. the number one factor when people make travel decisions, right? And let me show you how this new development from customer behavior has shaped service today.
Kaya ako ang tigdumala sa pagatod sa mga bisita sa ilang padulnan. Siguruhon ako nga limpyo ug maayong pagka-disinfect ang sakyanan. Importante nga safe ug secure ang akong mga pasahero. This is my role, my goal.
Sinusundo namin ang guests galing airport, dinadala sa Crimson Welcome Center, at doon nakaparada ang speaker na magdadala sa guests sa Crimson Boracay.
Sinusanitize namin ang touch points ng buong speedboat, upuan at life jacket para siguradong disinfected at safe. Ina-advise din namin ang guests tungkol sa safety procedures while riding a speedboat. This is my role, my goal.
Bilang guard, prioridad ming seguridad at kaligtasan dareng tao keng hotel. Bayo milog ang guest o ang empleyado, siguraduhan ko na dumalan niya keng foot sanitizing mat, metal detector at temperature check. Handa kami rin umaksyon kareng emergency situation keng hotel. This is my role, my goal.
We have implemented a contactless check-in and check-out system. We make sure all items such as keycards and ballpens are cleaned and sanitized by using our UVL cabinets. Moreover, we assist all guests with their inquiries through Crimson Cares and Quest Genius Hotline. This is my role, my goal.
We make sure that all rooms and public spaces are spotlessly clean, disinfected, and safe. We use hospital-grade disinfectants and an electrostatic spray to clean surfaces. We go through rigorous trainings on cleaning standards to ensure we are effective. This is my role, my goal.
All of our cooking equipments are properly sanitized and disinfected regularly. We are very careful in food handling. We make sure to wash our hands constantly. This is on top of making food delicious and safe. This is my role, my goal.
And make sure that the restaurant is sanitized. And food is delivered to the guests safely. This is my role, my goal.
With our culture of clean and target zero campaigns, we assure our guests with a worry-free and enjoyable experience when visiting any Crimson and Quest hotel.
For an industry that thrives on empathy and human connection, we cannot get away with face-to-face interaction.
But we will make every effort to ensure both our guests and staff will be able to do so safely.
We conducted consistent trainings with our associates in order to elevate our sanitation and disinfecting protocols.
Expect more personalization and safety in all aspects with a touch of extra personal care.
Rest assured you will be in a safe and sanitized room when choosing to stay in any Crimson and Quest hotel.
Our signature Filipino hospitality with exceptional service await your return.
Together
Together with all our associates, this is my role, my goal.
Okay, thank you very much for the time. That's it for me.
Ladies and gentlemen, and there you have it. Thank you very much, Mr. David Romano, Director, Organizational Development and Culture, Croma Hospitality Incorporated. Your talk, actually, what resonates to me in your talk are, the key points wherein we keep on hearing this: invest in technology, let us transform our trainers and trainees into digital natives. And of course, digital dynamics and engagement, especially like here in webinar series and other types of engagement. And lastly, let us make use of the adjustment and flexibility of CHED regarding curriculum. Ladies and gentlemen, please, if you have any question, contact Chuck, the Croma Hospitality Alternative Learning Campus, with regards to your OJT and training concerns. Those are truly excellent additions in our preparation as we envision the new culture of the hospitality and tourism post-COVID. And again, thank you, Director Romano, and we will see you in a bit for the panel discussion. And now, to introduce our second speaker from the Academe, may we call on to the virtual floor, Dr. Ryan Gamoso. Dr. Ryan.
Praise the Mabuhay and good morning. Our second speaker for today's webinar is a graduate of Bachelor of Science degree in Commerce, major in Business Management at De La Salle University, Master's in Business Administration at De La Salle University Professional School of Business Incorporated, and currently taking his doctorate in Philosophy and Business Studies at the Lyceum of the Philippines, University Laguna. He has previously worked for the government of UAE, Abu Dhabi Vocational Education and Training Institute. He is responsible for planning and delivery of lesson and assessments for technical and vocational courses in business trends like supply chain and business finance. And currently, he's the Assistant Vice President for Academic Affairs at the Lyceum of the Philippines, University Laguna, and the concurrent Dean of the College of Business Accountancy. He conducts business acumen training for business locators in Laguna, the main proponent in the design of the Institutional Flexible Learning Scheme of LPU Laguna, and the Laurelian Learning Experience as the major branding shift of LPU schools. Apart from this, he owns the D&G Pharmacy and Medical Supplies, a true Batangueño and a proud father of 3 boys. Please help me welcome Professor Christopher Dennis E. Katapang.
Hi, magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. Let me check first. Yeah, okay. Now again, good morning to all of you, and thank you for that warm introduction. Really, this morning, I see very familiar faces. But first up, before I continue, I'd like to thank first PWU, the Graduate School of Philippine Women. Alive. I've been to similar conversations like this recently, was yesterday. And I really think that this is the only way that we can weather this situation. The last time we had this kind of event was a world war. Can you imagine that? So while it is not war, our enemy today is not is someone who's more is something that's more insidious, which is something invisible to us. Now, therefore, I would like to thank quickly. Let me speak fast because I have 37 slides, and as I am computing, 37 slides in 20 minutes actually translates to only 36 seconds. So what can we expect from 36 seconds per slide in a 20-minute presentation about flexible learning, nothing much, but inspiration and perhaps scratching the surface. Can I please be allowed to share my my slide? I think I am already.
Yes, AVP, you are allowed.
Okay, so before I start again, a special shout out to the following personalities that made this event possible: to the president of PWU, Honorable President Marco Benitez, of course, the Dean Abellana, and the organizers, all the graduate students of PWU, and of course, a good friend of mine, Dean Chef Abram Peralta. Thank you for having me. I hope I give justice to the next 20 minutes because I literally stole 20 minutes of your weekend. So let me start by going straight to the point. It's a good thing that I came after the first speaker, Mr. Romano, because a lot of what he's saying will be validated by my presentation. Okay. So that's me. I've been much into flexible learning design the past few months, perhaps. Okay. Now, quickly, the impact of COVID on education. A lot of us are educators here in this room, but we're on Facebook, so I think I cannot have this a little bit more engaging than that. Let's just read through it. COVID-19 forced school closures in over 200 countries. So tama si Sir Romano. We're not alone. Disrupting the learning process of 1.7 billion students. So we're using a little bit of data here so that we know the right perspective of the situation. In the Philippines, the virus forced 2.6 million students out of school. You know what? I have had conversations. There were also students who went out not because of financial constraint, but they simply just can't take online learning. And you know that is something else. Number 3, private school enrollment is down by 35% in 2020-2021. And I have not updated this data yet for 2021, academic year 2021. But I'm praying to God that it should have at least improved. Many transferred to public schools, putting a bigger strain on public education system. So that's something that we expected. Because during the time of pandemic, what comes after, pandemic goes with economic problems. So your propensity to spend for anything outside of your basic needs will really be affected. So that's the impact of COVID-19 on education for now. We don't know yet the long term and how fast we can recover. I've been reading journals specifically for hospitality administration. And I stopped reading because I felt sad. Probably I was reading at a different perspective. They were saying it will take a couple of years because some people, when surveyed, their preference for going out has dramatically increased to 50%. We just pray to God that it actually does not happen that way. No, of course, my role here is to represent the academics, right? And so for the hundreds or I don't know, thousands of academics out there listening to us on Facebook, what have we learned? What have we learned so far in the past 400, 500 days of being in remote learning? First is, we figured out one size fits all does not work, right? Nabigla tayo eh. So we came up with a template for online delivery and realizing later on that one size really does not fit all. Some students may not be able to cope very well, and some students needed more time, and some students are actually just purely or simply intimidated. The first time I'm doing talks and lectures like this using Zoom, it's so surreal. I cannot. It took a while bago ko siya nakasanayan because I'm all alone in this room and I'm talking to a machine. So that's a little bit weird, but it took a while and naka-adjust naman. Next, tech alone is not the answer. We will talk about that in a short while. Okay. Third, change is possible, even mass change. I remember that was around March of 2019 when schools all of a sudden have to shift and pivot to what we call emergency online learning. There were schools who were ready, but majority of the schools were really groping. However, past the number of months and now more than a year, I think the Filipino teachers, being the resilient professionals that they are, what we have proven is that we are capable of changing. And teachers have been very creative. Teachers have been very creative. Now, a bit of the context, no, bago ko. By the way, this presentation will be twofold. So some of it will be about COVID and how higher education should adjust and flex a little bit. But as even prior to COVID, we have been talking about this avalanche of change, the fourth industrial revolution. So I'm tempted to mix these two content together because the next coming years will not totally about COVID. There are way too many forces affecting the higher education. If you believe that in the framework of the external environment by Michael Porter, there are way too many forces and we cannot just simply account it to one. So look at the figures. Number one, college enrollment declines again. It's more than 2 million students this decade. This is a little bit dated already, December 2019. 2 million students this decade. This is the United States. So this is a global phenomena. Enrollment in higher education is dipping. Look at this data. Student enrollment at US colleges down 11% since 2011. Since 2011. So we see a linear pattern, almost linear pattern, that the decline is something that we cannot and should not ignore. Number three, the undergraduate enrollments by type of HEI. The composition is also has tremendously dropped undergraduate student enrollments by type of HEI. And it is noticeable that the decrease is across all types. The decrease is across all types. But furthermore, in this article at HuffPost, Ernst & Young removes degree classification from entry criteria as there's no evidence university equals success. I'd like to update this a little bit. If you're a follower of Elon Musk, he would always talk about his qualifications for hiring in his tech companies that he manages. And talagang sinasabi niya upfront, college degree is not a requirement to enter Tesla or anything that is being managed by Elon Musk. Google, Apple, IBM, among large companies dropping college degree requirement for new hires. So these tech companies, they have somehow found an alternative source of formal training. Well, formal training is for higher education, or so alternative source of learning for their would-be employees. And regardless of where their employees would have it, what's important for them is if you can deliver the work and if you have the right skill sets and competencies to deliver them. Right? Okay, a little bit about Google as well. Like you may have heard it in the news. Google, the first company that embraced work from home, is also establishing that work from home is something that will stay. In fact, they have figured out a way to compensate people a little bit lower compared to people who are appearing on site. Okay. So Google is Google is interesting because Google is, if we follow the framework of Michael Porter in terms of five forces model, Google is not a competitor. Google is clearly a substitute because Google does not belong to the same industry. So these kinds of players right now, they really are very disruptive because they move fast and their impact is so huge. Now, for those of you who are familiar with Coursera, you probably may have come across a couple of Coursera courses that is sponsored by Google, and you can earn that for free for a couple of weeks. Okay, now on another note, look at this. Only 3% of employers think that your university degree is somewhat important. At least this is from one survey sometime in 2013. Things may have changed from then. The 3%, I hope it became 5%, but what are the odds, right? So, multiple surveys have uncovered what employers really want. And look at it, graduates need 5 C's and not A's alone. So what does A's alone mean there? These are your academic grades. This is your letter grade. And for most of companies, apparently based on this article printed in 2017, most companies look at different competencies instead of like your academic performance, performance alone. And most of them are looking at the 5 C's. And that will be the tone of our discussion until we finish my 37 slides. And what are those 5 C's again? Communication, collaboration. This particular exercise, the tripartite conversations we're having, this is it, collaboration. Cultural adaptation, critical thinking and problem solving, creativity and innovation. The bottom two, we're all familiar as academics, these are the higher order thinking skills. Now, further in that, to sum it all up, it seems like, and what has been presented by the speaker prior to me, is that there seems to be disconnect between what the industry requires and what the school provides. And here are some of the lines, and here are some of the summaries gathered from the different articles and resources that I've gathered. Employee need skills, not just knowledge and titles. I guess I have mentioned that already a while ago. Students need job, not just knowledge and titles. So these are your different stakeholders there versus employer. Because higher education, we have a unique value chain. And then the students themselves, they need jobs, not just knowledge and titles. The gap between academic programs and business practice has long been wide, and it's very hard to actually narrow it down. It's an endless chase. Because the industry will always have like 2-3 steps in advance. The truth about the economics of having your private education, rising tuition fees. And based on article, to a certain extent, lesser value. Lesser value because the price is increasing, but alternatives are out there. You can actually get it for free. So what does that? What's the impact of that in the perception of the customers? Less value, and of course, the rigid learning pathways that is serial among higher formal providers of formal higher education. But these things are changing. Okay, now the first challenge that I propose this morning is us to scratch the surface and understand how do we address the Industry 4.0 skills gap. These are again from conversations, articles read. Okay, take a look at this data again, big data, 1960 to 2009. Makikita natin yung pattern ng demand labor market demand. And if you notice, there is now an increase to or a shift to more of non-routine interpersonal and non-routine analytical. Okay, so there's obviously the routine manual, non-routine manual, routine cognitive. They're taking a step backward. Okay, here in the Philippines, this is another survey from the World Economic Forum. Reskilling. Companies, when asked, how long does it take for a company to reskill and the need for reskilling its employees, the labor force? You look at that, it's easier to understand if I simply take half of the donut, and there you go. Half companies here in the Philippines perceive that when they actually get their employees straight off from college, half of them will have to be retooled and upskilled. And this is the time it takes for them to do that. Less than 1 month, 1 to 3 years, and then so on. Furthermore, why? Responses to shifting skills. When asked about the responses to shifting skills needs, and this was the response of the industry. But by the way, why am I showing you all of this data and information? And why is it industry, all about the industry? Again, because we're preparing our workforce specifically for the industry. And this is exactly what the industry requires as told. Number one, look to automate work. I'll just have to, there's way too many, I'll just have to highlight the three. Look to automate work. That's the reason. Hire new permanent staff with skills relevant to new technologies and retrain existing employees. These are the regular responses. And look at the response likelihood is 86% likely, and 10% is like equally unlikely. So if you look at the data analytics here, malaki talaga yung likelihood that companies will look to automate the work, hire new permanent staff with skills related to new technologies, and retrain existing employees. Okay. Now I have to speak faster because I have already spent more than half of my time. So, and why? Because there are emerging skills that are not evidenced by the labor intake. And to a certain extent, these are analytical, active learning, creativity, technology, critical thinking, complex problem solving, and so on and so forth. This is a rather long list, but I would like to summarize it with another data from the 2022 skills outlook. Okay? These are public information. You can actually check it out in the web. There are things that we consider as growing demand for the following skills. And on the right side, these are all declining. So what do we feel about this? In the beginning, what I felt about this, I'm a little bit, there's fear. What will happen to our graduates? Will they be displaced? Well, it depends how resilient we are and how our learners are shifting from the declining skills to the growing skills. And schools and higher education institutions like us, we at LPU Laguna, we really spend time assessing to what extent are we compliant to the delivering the growing skills, which is demanded by future work. So in essence, the question is, are we preparing our students for work now? Because if that's the case, with the advent of AI and robotics and big data, there will be some of the work offering now will eventually be redundated in the next in the next few years. Okay. So challenge 2: how do we prepare the workforce to work with artificial intelligence. I'd like to call out AI. I'd like to call AI because AI sure disruptive technology that has dawned us. Not only the academe, because we're simply responding to the demands of the industry. Whatever happens to the industry, the academe is affected because the expectation is the academe should be able to train them ready for professional work. And hence the challenge is, how do we prepare the workforce with artificial intelligence? Now, if you look at this, again, data pa rin. Red, let's play red light, green light here. Nakikiuso. For the next coming years between 2016 to 2013. Basic cognition skills or cognitive skills is also down. Kasi nga, that will be replaced by AI. But what other things are expected? But hey, if you've read the book of who's that? Of Yuval Noah Harari, you'll never know. You'll never know. And the third is technological skills, up by 60%. Now, I'm speaking for a group of tourism and hospitality academics. Is this something relevant to us? Or am I misplaced here? I'm speaking so much about tech. Well, we all fear AI job obsolescence. Recently, we're fearing COVID, but COVID soon we will be adjusted. But what about this avalanche confronting us? Take a look at this. Those people in the hospitality business already know about this certain hotel in Japan, wherein there's not one single living and breathing person inside. Everything is robot and everything is AI. It's not a huge success yet, but it has already dawned. I have watched the video clippings about it, and it's a little bit creepy. There's no warmth, but who knows? Next. Wag na yan. Dito na lang sa neighborhood natin. Diba? This pandemic has introduced so many innovations that reduces the customer contact, the use of technology. With this technology, the touchscreen ordering system, everything can be stored, and therefore, when it is stored in a particular application, that can be used as information to predict future purchases. Okay, now I'd like to show you a bit of a video. Okay, and this is my final video, but quick lang. Because I may have forgotten to share sound. Okay, this is very quick, seconds lang. Din Peralta, can you see a different interface now? Can you see Google?
Yes, we can see YouTube right now.
Okay. Yeah. Few seconds.
Let's say you want to call a restaurant, but maybe it's a small restaurant which is not easily available to book online. The call actually goes a bit differently than expected. So take a listen.
See how may I hear you?
Hi, I'd like to reserve a table for Wednesday the 7th.
For 7 people?
It's for 4 people.
4 people when?
Next Wednesday at 6 p.m.
Oh, actually we reserve for upper 5 people. For 4 people you can come.
How long is the wait usually to be seated?
When, tomorrow or weekday or?
For next Wednesday, the 7th.
Oh no, it's not too busy. You can count for 4 people, okay?
Oh, I gotcha. Thanks.
Bye bye.
Okay. That's AI, and that's how AI is, slowly catching up with customer service. But in this particular example, it's barely noticeable who's the AI and who's the human being. Apparently, in that particular example, the AI is the assistant who's actually booking for a person. So you can actually shift that if if hotels will have that AI as well. That really you can notice that you're talking to a machine. So what will happen, right? So that particular task will eventually be redundated in favor of an AI. So these are the fears that we have, but we have to overcome those fears because, again, as I've said, these changes are straitjacketing us. We don't have much of a choice, right? So it's just how do we weather and plan for all of this. So I have 2 more minutes, perhaps, because I have a timer here. So let me just, the truth is we're not supposed to be afraid because AI will actually create more jobs than it will destroy. How will that happen? The challenge is learning facilitation for the demands of the 21st century. So para mawala yung takot na yon, kailangan magkasundo tayo. Like in this tripartite conversation. Ano ba dapat? How do we prepare? I remember when the television was introduced, it changed the entire world. The same way with internet and so on. This is just one of those changes, shifts. So, look, I'm actually proposing not necessarily based on some empirical study yet, but this is a collection of from what I've heard and from my conversations and from my own experience. 5 things. Number 1, shift in outcomes. Number 2, curricular updates. Number 3, flexible learning design, which is what the title is supposed to be of this talk. Pedagogy, but we have to mix it with a little bit of utagogy or utagogy. And of course, learning analytics. Okay? Now, my next slides will be fast because it's already very related to what we have seen. Shifting outcomes, meaning schools should now focus on the outcomes, learning outcomes required for future work. Kasi nga, mabilis na ang pagbabago. Now, what about curricular updates? There has to be some intentional audit and revisit of the hard skills necessary to prepare our students for 21st century. In the same way, we should also intentionally put on some generous amount of soft skills training. And lastly, lifelong training. Okay, you can argue with me that there should be more on the list, but I just chose to highlight the 3 skills, which is basically resonating from the articles that we have presented. Okay, what about flexible learning design? Flexibility in how learning should be delivered. And when we talk about flexibility comes in 4 ways. I would like to present them as flexibility in terms of the pace, place, process, and the product of learning. So anyway, we're all impregnated with this stuff from the so many webinars that we have attended in the past. So I'm just trying to put everything into a one big framework, one big idea. Okay, now pedagogy plus utagogy. So we may want to consider shifting from teacher-led more to self-determined learning and learner-centered learning. Why? Because our methods are now mapped into 2 categories, synchronous and asynchronous, and there's also that thing called modular. That's really self-determined learning. And the thing about modular is it takes a lot of what we call student a student to be self-regulated in order to successfully go through a self-determined learning pathway. So that thing should be tackled. It should be introduced among academic. And of course, learning analytics has to be slowly be introduced among teachers. It starts with descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, until such time that we are able to prescribe what is best for our students and be able to properly curate the right learning pathways for them. So in short, my question here is really, or my idea here is very simple. Imagine if you have enough information about your students' learning pathways. Imagine the power that you have. You know very well kung alin dyan ang coping, ang nahihirapan. You know exactly what particular areas the intervention is needed. And furthermore, Chef B?
Yes, AVP. Yes, AVP.
Yeah, this happens in an online setup. I'm all alone at home and someone is the door. I just have to open it for him. Can you give me 10 seconds? Sorry, I just have to open the door.
And of course, what's this? These are really the new trends and what's really happening on online setup. Are we still enjoying, everybody? I have seen almost 340 live audience in the Facebook Live, ladies and gentlemen. Can I see a heart reaction button on the FB Live if you are still there?
Sorry about that. It really happened.
Okay,
anyway,
now
I only have
AVP is here already. Thank you, AVP. You may proceed.
I only have 3-4 more slides, and I'm gonna speak fast. I know that my time is up. Okay, recommended technology has been presented by the speaker prior to me, but I have a message on that. All of these things for most of the academics, hardcore teachers, you know that already. There are different technologies for the different methods or method of delivery, whether asynchronous or synchronous. But my simple message is very simple. Do not start with technology. That's one of the things that we learned past year. Let's not force the technology. When we choose the technology, let's focus on the learning outcome and let's focus on the learner instead. And I'd like to also present you the ulam analogy. And I think this is very kumbaga pasok sa CITHM culture. Ulam, food. Anong paborito mong ulam? Adobo. Pero pag ang ulam mo araw-araw adobo, kawawa naman yung papakainin mo, di ba? Ganon din ang online learning. Kung araw-araw wala nang ini-expect sa estudyante mo, kundi nag-Zoom ka na nag-Zoom, nag-Teams ka na nag-Teams, wala ka nang ibang nangyayari. Come on, you can do better than that. And there are actually a long list of technology and applications that you can use. I will not discuss that, but there's this thing called SAMR. It's very similar to the Bloom's taxonomy, but they try to interface it with applications. SAMR. Okay, now it's gonna be our role as teachers is really not simply about delivering content in the light of this flexible learning. It's more about how do you engage your students. Engaging students in an online environment is 100% more difficult than the face-to-face. So never ever transpose your face-to-face lecture routine that you're so used to doing during pre-COVID to the online learning space. Because what will happen is there will be death by online learning. I'm not referring to physical death, but death in terms of learning. Soon your students will distance and they will no longer see the value of the hours and the data that they're spending for online learning. That's about it. Thank you, and I overshoot the time. Thank you, PWU, for listening, and all the participants.
Ladies and gentlemen, and there you have it. That is Assistant Vice President Dennis Katapang, Christopher Dennis Katapang of LPU Laguna. Thank you, sir, for those insights, especially those innovations and those innovations, those lectures that you have shared to us all today. Indeed, in these dark times, all academic institutions must come together to strengthen resiliency. And we aim for developing new strategies as we face the new normal in education. What resonates me the most is, of course, the 5 C's: communication, collaboration, culture, adaptation, critical thinking, and creative innovation. Also, it's a shock to all of us, but I do agree with my boss, AVP Dennis Katapang, that let us not start with technology. We don't want to be bound with technology. Let us start on knowing first how can we communicate the skills to the students, and then let us adopt the technology. AVP Dennis Katapang from the bottom of the PWDHM students' hearts, maraming salamat po sa inyo. Ladies and gentlemen, this is to remind everyone that you can now start using the chat box in both FB Live and in Zoom for your questions. The technical team will filter the questions to be asked for the panel discussions. Once again, that is AVP Dennis Katapa. Now, to introduce our last but certainly not the least speaker, may we call on our virtual floor, Mr. Raymond Carlos. Sir Raymond, the virtual floor is now yours.
Our next speaker is obtained his bachelor degree in tourism management from the Far Eastern University, Manila, with academic distinctions of summa cum laude. Also, he has a master's degree in tourism development management from University of the Philippines, Diliman. He is a tourism operation officer of the Office of Tourism Development Planning, Research and Information Management at the Department of Tourism, Philippines. He is a guest lecturer in De La Salle College of St. Benilde from 2018 to 2019. His expertise has the following core: the tourism development and investment planning, tourism rapid assessment, tourism regulatory impact assessment, and tourism circuit development and monitoring and evaluation. Without the further ado, let us all welcome our third resource speaker, Mr. Ramon A. Tionco Jr. Let's give him a virtual round of applause.
Yes, good morning, everyone. It really is a pleasure to be with you this morning. Kudos to the PWU Graduate School of Tourism and Hospitality. To our friends, Sir Doc Prime, I'm very excited to be with you and your colleagues and your students this morning. I am tasked and I was invited by Sir Eugene Ita for a small talk, to share part of the DOT's initiatives in shaping the future of tourism and hospitality through the reformulated National Tourism Development Plan and the updated Tourism Response and Recovery Plan. But before I proceed, may I ask if I am audible or am I loud and clear?
Hi, sir. Mr. Ramon, yes, you are loud and clear and your PowerPoint presentation is visible. Maraming salamat.
Sige po, let us proceed. Next, please. So before we get into the greater detail of our presentation, allow me to provide an outline for us to get a heads up of our topics this morning. Now, I will present the Philippine tourism performance pre-COVID, for us to be given an idea on how the industry has performed and has reached milestone over milestone in the recent years before we have been hit by the pandemic. And of course, it's a segue for us to talk about the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic and the challenges in terms of restart and for a resilient rebound. This is also a way for us to talk about the reformulated National Tourism Development Plan of this year and the next. No? If you're familiar with the 2016-2022 version, it has been reformulated to meet the needs of the impacts dealt by the pandemic, as well as the updated tourism response and recovery plan. Next, please. So as mentioned, the Philippine tourism industry has reached a very good performance, particularly under this administration. So if you notice, most of the macroeconomic indicators that the NEDA and the PSA have been collecting to evaluate or assess the performance of the industry have been very good. If you would also notice, in terms of expenditures, tourism gross value added, share to GDP, employment, as well as visitor arrivals and investments, we are projecting into a very competitive industry amongst our ASEAN neighbors throughout these throughout this 4-year period. Next, please. Next slide, please. To cap off this, the data presented in the previous slide, this is a nutshell of the other contributions of tourism to the economy. If you have noticed, the volume of tourism in million domestic trips have increased, as well as in foreign tourism arrivals. What's more important is the contributions to national output, which is 12.7%. It's actually one of the highest contributors to the economy when it comes to GDP, as well as in revenue, investments, and one thing that is sometimes undermined, the contributions to the blue ocean economy. So this is a metric that we are also closely monitoring when it comes to how coastal tourism is being a very important niche of or a product in the tourism landscape of our industry. Next, please. When it comes to employment, to highlight the year before the pandemic hit or struck the industry, passenger transport is the top employer in the industry. Another thing is 72% of employment is concentrated in passenger transport, accommodation, food and beverage, service activities. And the miscellaneous category includes services like spas or wellness activities and foreign exchange centers, among others. Next, please. When it comes to the product portfolio, we are glad to say that before the pandemic, we have increased our product portfolio from the previous 9 to 10. We are looking at adding one more by the end of this administration, but it's still under the scrutiny because of the roadmap because of the formulation of its roadmap. However, as mentioned, farm tourism has been added to the product portfolio. This is by way of the promulgation of Republic Act 10816 or the Farm Tourism Development Act. As mentioned, domestic trips have increased, and by source market, we have the largest coming from Asia, plus Australia and the Pacific. Next is the Americas, Europe, and then the others. When it comes to the supply side, domestic air seat capacity, we have increased our capacity in our air passenger vehicles. It is 1.3 times more than the capacity we had in 2015, as well as room capacity and international seat capacity. Next, please. However, as outlined, the impacts of the COVID-19 had truly struck the tourism industry, giving us, kumbaga, it made us put ourselves into a time machine. In other words, made us the impacts of the COVID-19 made us go back almost 9 to 10 years ago when it comes to tourism performance. That's how big the loss of tourism indicators, as indicated in the metrics that we measure, particularly revenue, employment, and volume. Because of course, the mobile or the mobility restrictions imposed here and abroad. Because all we know that tourism is a mobility engaged industry. It's a socio-economic activity, and without the with the restrictions of travel or movement of people, this has a great effect to our sector. Next, please. So, because of these come the challenges in tourism restart. The DOT, together with private organizations and academic institutions, have conducted several focus group discussions and key informative interviews to see and to know the challenges in tourism restart. And these three have been the more common themes from the data gathering activities that we had last year and until this first quarter of 2021. And these are financing digitization, marketing and promotions, and protocol or border restrictions. To be particular, there is difficulty in promoting and to promote host visitors due to the inconsistent LGU protocols, the costly reopening of businesses due to lack of clear roadmaps at the destination level, and the lack of funds or network access to shift to digital platforms or digitization, especially for our MSMEs. Next, please. With regards to the needs for a resilient tourism rebound, we have highlighted 4 thematic areas of concern with regards to this. These are healthcare, vision and roadmap, capacity building, and emergency response. Next, please. And this has led us to come up with the 4 pillars of what we believe should be considered in the better normal. These are to communicate, to diversify, to bespoke or customize, and to simplify. I think these 4 are very much related to the other discussions that our co-resource persons have shared a while ago. Next, please. So this is the way for us to, because of the challenges brought about by the pandemic, the DOT has engaged with the industry and the stakeholders in reformulating its national tourism development plan to cope up with the needs of the industry and the tourism workers. Next, please. So as you have known before, the NTDP of this previous administration is two-pronged when it comes to its strategic directions. Before, it is engaged in competitive tourism and inclusive and sustainable tourism. But because, again, because of the pandemic and how it has shaped or affected our industry, the DOT and the stakeholders have realized to somehow morph these strategic directions into three, particularly promoting safe, fun, and competitive tourism, adhering to resilient, inclusive, and sustainable tourism. And because of the implementation of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling next year to local government units, providing them with much larger era for the support and operations of their local tourism, we believe that strong governance and destination management should be one of the key strategic directions. Next, please. For strategic direction one, particularly promoting safe and competitive tourism, these are some of the key concepts in the action plan that we have highlighted. And these are safe and green travel, infrastructure and facilitation, safe and high quality experience, livelihood protection, innovative financing and investments, of course, upskilling of workforce, innovative marketing, and quality standards. Next, please. When it comes to strategic direction two, or pursuing resilient, inclusive, and sustainable tourism, these are the following concepts that revolve this strategic direction. MSME upgrading, accessible and inclusive tourism, risk mitigation and crisis readiness, and conservation and climate smart investments. This is anchored in the tourist program that, or the SIRT program funded by the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank for destination development and management. Next, please. For strengthening governance and destination management, we have highlighted the upgrading of tourism information infrastructure and stronger capacities for local planning and implementation. Next, please. These are the indicative impacts based on the scenarios raised by our colleagues from the PSA and or through the Philippine Tourism Satellite Accounts. Now we have three scenarios. These are very much available to everyone when it comes to the indicators per scenario. Particularly, these are predicated on vaccination of workers, the openness of travel, the relaxation of borders, things of that nature. But as you can see here, we have the mild and the harsh and as well as severe scenario. Next, please. For the budget, of course, for transparency purposes, we have allotted this amount to help us properly implement all these programs as outlined in the action plan. Next, please. Now, we'll talk about the updated tourism response and recovery plan. This is a framework built in response as well to the pandemic, particularly in strengthening our MSMEs and our tourism workers. Next, please. As mentioned, these are the objectives of the plan: to provide safety and protection of tourism workers, visitors, and communities prioritized, tourism enterprises and job recovery supported, and market confidence restored, with an overall impact of mitigating the impacts of COVID-19 to the tourism industry, with emphasis on sustained business, capacity to workforce, and protected vulnerable groups. Next, please. If you may ask, or if you may request for a copy of the reformulated National Tourism Development Plan and the updated Tourism Response and Recovery Plan, it is readily available. Either I can share it to Dean Prime, so that he can, or to our media or tech team, so that you may be able to look into the strategic action plan, because it would be a lengthy discussion for me to talk about all these action plans, especially to those that are related to the Academe. So if I may, if you would allow me, let me just put this into the alignment of the two plans towards recovery and moving forward in our industry. So as you can see here, the two plans are aligned. No? They are harmonized intendedly to support the objectives and the desired outcomes for each plan, particularly social protection and livelihood. As you can see there are outlined action programs, no? And activities that will reflect the initiatives of the UTRRP, as well as enterprise survival, product development and marketing. Please. Next, please. Infrastructure investments and LGU or destinations readiness. So in summary, given its reliance on SMEs for economic growth and job creation, the country must capitalize on every opportunity to bounce back quickly from the economic fallout of COVID-19 and reposition itself in sectors with transformative economic potential. This was mentioned by our good president a while ago. This requires shifts in the policy framework, capacity building of tourism workers, and incentives provided to businesses in several sectors, which both the RNTDP and UTRRP represent. Next, please. Since tourism has always been an important growth and job-generating sector for the Philippines, COVID-19 crisis will require a redoubling of effort from the government, the private sector, of course, including the Academe, to support adaptability, linkages, and liquidity for SMEs in the tourism sector. This will likely require close dialogue among all tourism stakeholders for years to come to ensure what works is promulgated across these sectors, and that a fit-for-purpose regulatory framework or frameworks are in place to attract investments and tourists moving forward. I think that would be all. Thank you very much for listening, and kudos for a well-organized event. Thank you.
Maraming salamat po. Maraming salamat po, Mr. Ramon Tionco, for that enlightenment with regards to the plans of recovery for under the Department of Tourism. Thank you so much, sir, for being here. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the most awaited part as we bring in together the experts of the Academe, the industry and government to answer and exchange ideas in the panel discussion. May we humbly ask the presence again of our dear speakers to turn on their cameras and unmute themselves. And of course, calling again on the virtual floor, our expert from the industry, Mr. Director Romano, from the Academe, Assistant Vice President Katapang, and of course, from the government, Mr. Tionco. Okay. Thank you so much. From earlier until today, we have come up and of course analyzed and filtered questions from both Zoom chat and of course in the FB Live chat to ask you some relatable questions. We would like to start with, of course, the our expert from the we would like to ask and to start with Mr. David Romano, our expert from the industry. Sir David, are you there? Okay. I guess we have difficulty in connecting with him. Let us move on, of course, to our expert from the Academe. Okay, from the Academe, AVP Dennis Katapang. AVP, we have actually a question coming from our dear Dean Prime Abellana. And his question is, how can we monitor progress of our students having internship online, or if it is being supervised by AI? How can we validate 100% the internship practice of what we are doing online?
Yeah, internship has been a challenge for most higher education, in particular because our usual conduct of deploying the students is now on halt for safety purposes. What we have been doing at LPU is first of all, we have to align flexibility as well in terms of internship. That's the first thing, because there's very limited exposure nowadays in terms of internship. It has to be really thought of, not only because of the pandemic, but because of the changing employment opportunities is also changing. So I'd like to clarify that. This is not merely just responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, but because it's just that the industry itself is shaping. You may have heard of like the gig economy, work from home situations. All of these things they do not kumbaga, they were not prevalent in the past 5 or 10 years, but they're now, it seems like it's a growing thing. So
hello, AVP.
To capture that opportunity and to provide flexibility as well in terms of how the students can. Okay, am I back? Flexibility. And finally, am my audio clearer now? Dean?
You are.
Okay.
You are, AVP.
And going back to the question of how do we properly monitor their learning experience, it boils down again to look at the framework that I have presented, that you have to be very clear about what outcomes for internship. Whether it's pandemic or not, the outcomes are the same. Okay. And we may have been lousy before, and if in that particular area we have been lousy, even in the pandemic, we will remain to be lousy if we're not targeting the right outcomes and designing the right assessments and creating training plans accordingly. It's a very lengthy process, cannot be simply mapped out with just one response, but it's a response of how do you design flexibility in your training, how do you set up the learning outcomes, how do you fix it, how do you place it along the different tracks, and eventually how do you transform authentic assessments that are geared towards when it's internship, it is really more on metacognition. It's the process of it's learning, the learning process. What and in most schools, internship is of the highest level of student outcomes. So we cannot really, hindi siya pwedeng maliitin. So I guess again, given the limited time, I'm simply just scratching the surface.
Thank you. Thank you, AVP. And I do agree that 100% face-to-face or not, we should plan for how to assess the outcomes of the students, right? And of course, I think the flexible internship is here to stay for a long time. Thank you, AVP. I would like to relate that also to DOT Ramon Tionco. Sir, does the government, especially or particularly DOT, has any plans of or recommendations with regards on flexibility of internship? Since we all know that we are really 100% really the tourism and hospitality is at the forefront of this pandemic. Sir Ramon, any thoughts about this?
It's a very nice and it's a relevant question that we all should be concerned about, because as longer as the pandemic gets, the more students are getting, asking more questions about when will they finish their, or when will they properly conduct their internship programs, or particularly the schools. As the DOT is concerned, if I may share my screen, may I? May I be able to share my screen so that I can share to you a file that has been recently yes, this if you may notice, this has been just revised last week. Okay. So these are the guidelines on virtual practicum in the new normal for tourism and hospitality in the DOT enterprise. So the virtual survey on practicum for the industry. It is a collaborative effort by the DOT, the CHED, the DepEd, the TESDA, the TIBFI, and along with our friends from the Association of Administrations of Hospitality Hotel, or the RMEI, the HRAP, and as mentioned, CHED. So the objectives of this is to assist tourism and hospitality students, tourism educational institutions, and tourism enterprise administering alternative practical programs. This is also to promote the systematic approach to alternative practical programs suitable to the new normal and strengthening industry, academic, and government linkages. So I think in this part, there have been roles already been outlined for what agency, for each agency, particularly the DOT, the HRAP, the host establishment, and the learning institution, and the HRMEI. This is still being reviewed, but I believe it's in the final stage already, based on what I have known from our friends from the Office of Industry Manpower Development. This is the proposed guidelines that the DOT has been venturing with our co-government agencies and the private sector. So I'm really hoping that this would be formalized already, so that most of us will be given clarity when it comes to how we can proceed with the new normal when it comes to the internship programs and immersions for our students.
Thank you, Mr. Ramon Tionco. And really, this is what we need right now, right? Of course, the government is giving us the basic documents and of course basic guidelines on how to communicate and to enhance our practicum standards. And we are very happy that DOT is really at the forefront also in answering these queries. Practicum is really one of the most important part of the experience, the learning experience of the students. That's why we really, in the Academe and also government and industry, we post a very large or big chunk of the pie actually here in developing and performing their skills and competencies. I would like to go back to AVP Dennis Katapang. There is a question here from a DHM student, Din Dennis. AVP Dennis. The question goes, how does administration measures teaching effectiveness in flexibility learning setup? I am excited with this question because I know you have a good answer for that. AVP Dennis?
Yeah, because we work together in the same institution and you can relate to this. Number one, you really have to take a look again at the instruments. That's my quick response. The learning space is totally changed. And the skill sets in delivering effective teaching and learning has also shifted to more of digital communication skills. So there are now skill sets among teachers and facilitators of learning that are becoming more of imperatives, that nakikita mo na ngayon kung sino talaga yung ready for this virtual space. And so how do we squarely measure the performance of our teachers? Number one is, of course, adjusting the instruments that we use in terms of evaluating them. And also is coming up with an instrument that covers the overall online learning experience, which I would like to plug because we have that. Because you cannot just localize the effort to just the face in front. There are way too many factors that affect the effectiveness of the delivery of online learning. So schools may as well check on that too, especially that as we began with this flexible learning, we have been bombarded with too many of the digital divide issues like connectivity and issues about gadgets and the readiness of their devices. Kahit magaling si teacher mo, pagka yung ibang elemento like software and hardware does not work with you, the entire process will be futile. So in other words, we're no longer being myopic about one element of the learning experience, but the totality of it all. So I hope I'm getting that. I'm getting to the right response to you. So I guess that's it. Adjust, and I may want to quote someone that I have heard somewhere.
Yes, AVP.
That I don't know, I may have forgotten, but this is not originally mine, but I also heard it from Mr. Paulo Laurel. There's walang optimal this time. We have been like barely 2 years after we're all forced to jump in. So think about it this way. We are all actually we are all building the plane while we are riding it. So there's no one quick template for that. But the one thing that's more certain is that it's the attitude of organizational resiliency and how fast do you respond to the little nuances and issues that come along. Thank you.
Thank you, AVP, and I truly agree with that. I can still remember when we are forced to go online, the preparations that we are thinking of, that LPU or other schools are really prepared prior to the pandemic, hindi pala totoo. We are not prepared, and until this moment, we keep on changing. So AVP's advice to all of us is we need to adjust, keep on adjusting. I can still remember clearly that we are using evaluation instrument that is really outdated and we are not using it anymore, right? So keep on updating. That is the advice of our AVP, right? keep on updating based on how do we actually measure the learning of our students right now, and thus the teacher is really performing correctly. Okay, going back to DOT Ramon Tionco, sir, at this point in time, do you think the plans of DOT regarding continuation of learning and continuation of the industry has any significant effects on what we are having right now, or what is actually in state? In a simpler question, did the plans of the DOT regarding education was effective in your own point of view, Sir Ramon?
Well, particularly, kasi the DOT has multiple functions din naman po in delivering its mandate to the people, no. As far as the planning and the research side, I think we are still on track on the action plans being established by the stakeholders and the DOT as well. Why did I say that? Because during the pandemic, we have been more intact with the academic institutions. Talagang nung nag-pandemic, it was a pleasant surprise that the government, particularly the attached agencies of the DOT, realized the importance of the Academe. And when it comes to the pool of students that are capable of contributing with the agency, particularly in forms like sa akin, sa division ko, we have appreciated the contribution of the Academe when it comes to providing with planning tools.
Yes.
And other evaluating tools that evaluation tools that we can be used, that the local governments can be using. Kasi we thought that the tools that we have been using pre-pandemic should be modified to meet the needs of these LGUs. As mentioned a while ago, stepping into the Mandanas ruling, talaga kasing lalaki yung demand for research, for technical support, and technical tools needed by these LGUs from us. Kaya talagang na-appreciate namin yung partnership with the Academe and other research institutions as well. So yun, talaga it's a pleasant surprise. And
thank you.
That we have been having a good partnership so far.
Thank you, Sir Ramon, and I do agree with that. I can see really shout out to Director Cristina Aquino, our chairman of TIBFI, because we can really feel that the plans of TIBFI for collaboration with the Academe and the industry had really tremendously changed the landscape of online learning. So thank you, Sir Ramon, for validating that. I would like to go back, of course, again to AVP Dennis Katapang. I have a question. This is coming from the Dean, actually. I don't know if I get it right, but speaking of AI earlier, I know that you are really passionate with technology and in education. Speaking with AI, we are wondering, the question is, can AI 100% supervise learning of the students?
AI. First of all, what does AI does? AI, a lot of us equate it with machine learning. It starts with, this development allows us to predict with the highest level of accuracy what could be the outcome of such. Merong napakagandang Netflix documentary on that. May not be about entirely about the education sector, but generally tungkol kasi siya sa I gain my inspiration from that. Like for example, Amazon, Google. These are companies that base their decisions on data. And not just data, we're talking about big data. And from there, algorithms can be made and patterns can be unraveled. So if you ask me, do we use actually AI to monitor the teachers? I have not thought of that. The truth is, I'm thinking about AI as our tool to properly harness data, keep them, and make use of them. In one of my conversations with an AI specialist from the industry, sabi niya, tigilan nyo na ang paggamit ng logbook. Tigilan nyo na ang paggamit ng Microsoft Word. It has to be coded because in the near future, you will be, those kinds of information will be useful for you. Now, going back to our school operations, can you imagine? Well, some of our default information are already coded into numbers, right? Grades. But can you imagine if those grades can be sorted and can be put together to make more meaning that will really make us understand? That's on a macro perspective. But what about learning happening, analytics happening inside your own class, in your LMS, in your assessments? On a bigger scale, what about everybody here, we're all academicians, we're familiar with SOs. How about those outcomes? Now, the thing about AI and machine learning, you won't be able to, it's like, your Tesla car. You don't complain about the Tesla if you just recently purchase it, because Tesla gets to be more intelligent as you use it, because machine learning is that it thrives on data. It thrives on data. So putting that context to a school, can you just imagine the amount of information that we're collecting each day? And if we can use that to a bigger purpose, not because not driving, no, ours is a bigger purpose. How can we create better and more focused learning among our students?
Exactly.
And it all starts with learning about them and getting as many data and eventually be able to prescribe and create algorithms. Thank you.
Thank you, AVP Dennis, with regards to that. See, AVP Dennis is really passionate about AI and passionate about technology, especially that we don't have any other choice. This is the current situation that we have. What we need to do is to validate that if this technology are really in sync with the outputs or the outcomes needed to perform by our students. Maraming salamat, AVP Dennis. Sir Ramon, maybe this is my second to the last question for you. Regarding DOT, I know that we already extend our limited face-to-face in terms of practicum, and that is actually with coordination with DOT. Do you think that really with that particular limited face-to-face, we are allowing our students to be at the hotels who are DOT accredited already? Do you think, Sir Ramon, that we are, this is a question coming from our advisor, Dr. Sardenia. She is curious on how ready the hospitality and tourism industry in accepting students in practicum on-site. Because DOT said that if the hotel or the restaurant is DOT accredited, then we or DOT will allow it, and IITF allows it. Sir Ramon.
Yes. For us, kasi it's very much manageable if we look at the universe of the DOT accredited establishments. Which is why you notice we have shared that comment or response to the industry. If the establishment is DOT accredited, then why not? The student or the institution that would deploy that student, we have confidence in that DOT accredited establishment. But as far as the others that do not, we have to understand kasi um, the rationale of accreditation. No? Enterprises, establishments look for accreditation so that their standard or their quality of service can be validated.
And safety, yes.
Yes. And with that comes, of course, the responsibility of delivering that services that they have they have practiced, they have performed as a standard. So for us, it's a must that they could be able to live up to this standard that they are purchasing or they are buying into, which is the DOT accreditation. To be truly honest with you, the accreditation is more of non-mandatory activity kasi, which is why we have this progressive accreditation system to cope up with the with the MSMEs, in other words. Kasi if one of the clamor that we have heard when it comes to the previous accreditation system was it was it's more favorable to the big players.
Yes.
Ang mga nabibigyan lang na accreditation are the hotels.
Yes.
Siyempre kasi sila yung may quality. Okay, how about your mom and pop accommodation, your Airbnbs, diba? So how can they be able to validate their quality, diba? So yun nga, again, the DOT is adjusting as well. We are coping up with the needs of this internship slash partnership with the Academe so that we can have, of course, a fit for purpose strategy. Kasi we cannot just deploy the students. It's a very hard responsibility, of course, to just give them the go signal to have their immersion. So we have to prioritize safety, as mentioned by Dr. Katapang, diba? So
yes, I agree. Thank you, Sir Ramon. And also, we saw the list of those DOT hotels accredited. There are not a lot. There are just a few hotels, and you can really see that the names of Okada and other big hotels in the Philippines, sila lang yung may accreditation talaga, no, to continue. Because we are confident, the government, DOT is confident enough that they have the highest form of safety and precautions with regards in dealing with this pandemic. Maraming salamat for clarifying that up, Sir Ramon. But of course, the number of hotels will not suffice the number of practicumers in the Philippines for the hospitality and tourism industry. That's why, according to ABP Dennis, we should be always flexible. Speaking of the practicum of being flexible in the practicum. This is my last question before your last message, ABP Dennis. Because we are all online, and we are still looking at the authenticity of education. How can we assure, parang ramdam ko din, ano? How can we assure that the grades of the students are really their grades? Can you hear me? Can you hear me loud and clear, ABP Dennis? I know that this is one of the core problems of the academic institutions right now. How can we validate if the students are really learning or they are just copy pasting and paraphrasing everything online? AVP, what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, talagang hot question talaga yan. Kahit kami sa campus, we're groping with the answers, but okay. Number one, a good knowledge of your LMS features may help. I will be very practical. If your learning outcome is necessarily you want your students to learn mastery of the concepts, I have nothing against that. And there are cool features of the LMS that will help you out build the mastery. But just have to invest time to curate your exams, because depending on the vendor or the brand of your LMS, there are features out there that will shuffle the shuffle the items and at the same time shuffle the options. Well, it's not 100% foolproof, but then again, sa panahon ngayon, we just need to outsmart them.
Agree.
Outsmart the kids, no? Kasi you cannot blame them. They're in their own space. They have that level of confidence right now that they think they can do anything without the watchful eyes of the teacher. That level of confidence allows them to become smart even in answering the responses creatively. Okay, so number one is your LMS. You have to be very familiar about the tools of your LMS. Ayoko masyado maging philosophical about it because there are tools. Okay? Dagdagan mo yung tanong mo. Kunyari ang tanong mo 100 items. Kunyari ang tanong mo 1 to 10. Madali talagang i-cheat ang 1 to 10 pagka naka-LMS ka. Siguro dagdagan mo, gawin mo minimum of 1 to 30 from a bank of 50. So medyo humihirap na ng humihirap. Alam mo naman natin na ginagawa ng mga bata, screenshots galore. Meron pa mga iba dyan gumagamit ng mga gaming applications para may streaming. Sabay-sabay silang nagte-take ng exams at habang sila ay nag-EML. Well, yan na talaga ang labanan ngayon natin. Ano? So that's their space. So we just simply have to outsmart them. And second response is, okay, for learning outcomes specific to higher order thinking skills, go for authentic assessments. We're pushing for more authentic assessments and project-based approach. Number one, it's very difficult to fake that because it's project-based. Each project is unique with its own set of deliverables. Plus, and it's in narrative state, and they submitted in your LMS, turn on, and you can see to what extent are they plagiarizing and if they're taking their answer from elsewhere. And it's not, hindi naman bawal, pero talagang outright copy paste is something that we don't support. So that is still technology, but a little bit of assessment. So really, I'd like to narrow it down to a couple of things. Number one, essential content is necessary. Di ba, Dean? Ito yung paulit-ulit ko sinasabi sa inyo. Essential content. You know, don't punish your students with your 47, 62 slides. Don't do that, for heaven's sake. Sayang yung bandwidth. Okay. Essential content. This is also true for primary education. And second is authentic assessments. Authentic assessments and flexible modalities. I hope I was able to scratch the surface.
Yes, not just the surface, AVP, but really maybe our students hearing you right now from the Zoom and FB.
Yes, alam namin yan. Alam namin ang ginagawa nyo, ha? Kaya watch out. Pagalingan lang tayo.
Remember that your teachers are one step or one marathon.
Ala nyo, ha?
Thank you so much, AVP Dennis, for that. Now, maybe last quick words of wisdom, and of course, last words coming from our DOT representative Ramon Tionco. Sir?
Napaisip ako sa response ni AVP Dennis, no? Baka pwede namin i-venture yung technical assistance in outsmarting the students. When it comes to the academic yung partnerships natin. For message, no, again, there is light at the end of the tunnel. In other words, we are, Okta research can also validate that we are nearing clear end to this pandemic. And we, as a government, part of the government, we are optimistic that the industry will bounce back. So, matter of fact, the Philippines is one of the sweet spots for tourism recovery in Asia because of what we call the revenge travel. There are more. It's a growing niche, no? And because of the affordability of the Philippines, enterprises and services, we are dubbed as one of the uh, you know, bright spots when it comes to the recovery for tourism and hospitality. So kapit lang po tayo. Malapit na po tayong maka-travel ulit, makita yung mga destinations natin. As much as possible, the DOT is highly encouraging domestic travel po muna. Let's become visitors of our own destinations so that we can be proud of them. We have world-class destinations, and we can help as much as enjoy the destinations. More importantly, we can help the local economy. So tayo rin ang magtutulungan sa isa't isa when it comes to this recovery moving forward. Yun na po. Maraming salamat.
Thank you so much, Sir Ramon. There is a light at the end of the tunnel and we will wait for that revenge tourism. Thank you so much. Last words, AVP Dennis Katapang.
Well, again, for my fellow academics, siguro what I want to say is yung because this is the group of CITHM or tourism and industry, right? I'm addressing my fellow academics, no, using the food para nakaka-relate tayong lahat. Adobo, analogy. Huwag parating adobo. Siyempre kahit naman kayo, di ba? Bigyan naman natin kuminsan ng paksiw, yung maasim-asim para mag-aral sila. Or a variety. And second, okay, we're all in this process of, as I've said, building the airplane while we are riding it. So at least it allows us to apply our innovative skills. It's fun times. You're part of the history. You're part of the history. No political anything, but I just remember the president before. I have no political affiliation. Sabi niya, how do you want to be remembered this time of pandemic? And as academics, I will have to also say that question to you. Do you want to remember this time of pandemic? This is one opportunity that you can actually shine. Thank you.
Thank you, AVP Dennis. What do you want to be remembered at the end of this pandemic? Maraming salamat po and wag palaging adobo. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I know you have more questions, but I hate to bring it to you. This is the last question, and we have come to the end of our panel discussion. To our most respected experts who attended our panel discussion, AVP Katapang, and of course, Sir Tionco, maraming salamat po. Buong puso kami nagpapasalamat. Of course, Director Romano earlier, maraming salamat po. Ladies and gentlemen, to present the Certificate of Recognition, may we call Mr. Aldwin King Manlong. Sir?
Thank you, Chef. Philippine Women's University School of Hospitality Management awards this Certificate of Appreciation to Mr. David Romano for imparting his valuable insights and expertise during the webinar entitled Tripartite Collaboration with the Academe, the Tourism and Hospitality Industry and the Government, addressing the issues and challenges in the new normal via Zoom and FB Live, given this 30th day of October 2021 at the Philippine Women's University, Taft Avenue, Manila, Philippines. Signed by our dear Professor, Dr. Jocelyn R. Sardena and Dr. Efraimwell Jose L. Abellana, the Cluster Dean of School of Food Science and Technology, Tourism and Hospitality Management. The same citation is given to Mr. Christopher Dennis Katapang and Mr. Ramon Tionco Jr. Again, thank you very much, dear speakers, for sharing your expertise with us. Back to you, Chef Abram.
Thank you so much, Mr. Aldwin. And ladies and gentlemen, to provide us with the synopsis of what has transpired during this webinar, may we call on the virtual floor, Ms. Rhoda Liza A. Flores. Ma'am, it's now yours.
Hi, great morning, everyone. It's my privilege to present our biggest takeaway from this webinar based on the lessons learned in these engaging and relevant topics delivered by our esteemed resource speakers. So our first speaker, Mr. David Romano, presented the industry approach, achieving student outcomes of the better normal. He presented the skills development in the time of COVID-19, wherein Asian countries are one of the affected country, and said with a quote, "We are not alone." For practical skills training, the HEIs partnered to tourism and hotel industry in preparation for their OJT through the succession plan. However, during the pandemic, the learning process stopped. Mr. Romano enumerated the obstacles to continuity in the provision of training to students, such as lack of general technological infrastructure, electricity, internet connectivity and devices, lack of effective and user-friendly distance learning platforms, and lack of staff capacity to support distance learning through pedagogical resources. Furthermore, there are tools being used today. These are video conferencing between teachers and participants, YouTube, developing videos, creating virtual learning environments, and developing new written resources. Concerning to this, there are lessons we need to learn. This is to invest on technology that will help deliver learning like learning management system, to transform our trainees and trainers into digital natives, and how do you engage the students in a digital platform. Indeed, this is our role, our job. Our second topic, the evolving landscape of higher education and flexible learning, effective teaching strategies, presented by Prof. Christopher Dennis Katapang. The unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic posed a gigantic challenge to all facets of life as it is interrupted all sectors of society, including higher education. So face-to-face classes were suspended as a risk of infection in the academic community became a primordial concern. In pursuit of quality education, the HEIs shall continue to deliver learning using a mix of online and offline activities as may be feasible to all students. Online delivery may be either or combination of synchronous or asynchronous modes. Professor Katapang enumerated what we've learned. On-site, one size fits all doesn't work. Tech alone is not the answer, and change is possible, even mass change. Furthermore, he mentioned that graduate students need the 5 C's and not the A's alone. So these are communication, collaboration, cultural adaptation, critical thinking and problem solving, and creativity and innovation. Concerning to this, innovative learning modalities need to be adapted to ensure continuity of learning for all students considering their time, pace, process, and product, yet still maintaining quality while health protocols and remaining compliant to guidelines set by the IATF, the LGU, and the Commission on Higher Education. Lastly, Prof. Katapang cited, and I quote, "Never ever transpose your face-to-face lecture routine to the online learning space." End of quote. And for our third speaker, Mr. Ramon Tionco Jr. spoke about the Department of Tourism initiatives supporting the university and industry linkage. He presented the Philippine tourism performance in 2016 to 2019, the impacts of COVID-19 pandemic, the challenges in tourism, and for resilience rebound, the reformulated National Tourism Development Plan for 2021 and 2022, and lastly, the updated Tourism Response and Recovery Plan. In 2019, that employment in tourism tops the passenger transport with 33.8%, followed by the accommodation and the food and beverage sector. However, the impact of COVID-19 led the tourism and hospitality industry to close its operations, which affects the employment and tourism revenues. financing digitization, marketing and promotion, and protocols borders restrictions are the challenges in tourism restart. Furthermore, Mr. Chongko enumerated the 4 pillars of travel in the better normal. So these are to communicate, diversify, bespoke or customize, and simplify. Additionally, he presented the 3 strategic directions of the National Tourism Development Plan to promote safe and competitive tourism, pursue resilient, inclusive, and sustainable tourism, and strengthening governance and destination management. Lastly, to mitigate the impacts of COVID-19 to the tourism industry with the emphasis on sustained businesses, capacitated workforce, and protected vulnerable groups, the updated tourism response and recovery plan. So once again, thank you to our respected and esteemed resource speakers for sharing these relevant and interesting topics. Kapit lang and choose a variety of ulam. Thank you very much. Back to you, Dean Abram.
Thank you so much, Ms. Flores, for that concise and very meaningful synopsis to all of us. To give us the closing remarks message, may we call on the virtual floor, Ms. Amelia Bawang, the chairman for today's webinar. Ma'am, the virtual floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Chef Abram. On behalf of DBHR 611, Current Trends, Issues, and Challenges in Hospitality and Tourism class, under Dr. Jocelyn Sardenia, our professor and advisor, it is a great honor for me to have this opportunity and closing on tripartite collaboration of the Academe, Hospitality, Tourism, Government. We would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to the PWU administration headed by our president, Mr. Marco Binetes, energetic and supportive Dean of Hospitality and Tourism, Dr. Eframuel Abellana, our mentor, Dr. Jocelyn Sardena, the PWU Media and ICT team, and the PWU and ICT team. Great appreciation to the different invited guest speakers, academic Professor Christopher Dennis Katapang, Professional Hospitality and Tourism Industry, Mr. David Romano, and Government Sector Department of Tourism, Mr. Ramon Kionco, for accepting our invitation and generously sharing their knowledge, experience, and time. This webinar was indeed timely as it was conceptualized in line with the vision of the School of Hospitality Management, particularly to produce a leader today and tomorrow in education and training in the field of hospitality. It directed the objective of the course to engender partnership through establishment of linkages and collaboration with the Academe, hospitality and tourism industry, and the government to address and resolve the current issues and challenges of the industry and the new normal. Moreover, allow me to express my innermost gratitude to our team. Kindly show our pictures. This webinar would not be possible without this pool of brilliant future hospitality management doctors. To the team, for my chair, Ms. Rodalisa A. Flores, for the external communication and speaker relations, of course, yours truly and Ms. Flores, the technical and support, Mr. Eugene E. Binicta and Mr. Aldwin Manlong, our program and secretariat, Dr. Ryan Gamoso, Raymond Carlos, moderator, and our host, very articulate and dynamic Chef Abram Peralta, the registration, evaluation, and certificate, Miss Caris, headed by Miss Caris Conanan, for the finance and token, Rhoda M. Macalam, and for the documentation, Miss Emelita M. Santos. Kudos to us all. Indeed, competition makes us faster, collaboration makes us better. Thank you. Keep safe always.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bawang. This webinar will not be possible without your chairmanship and to the rest of the hardworking team of the DHM class. Congratulations everybody. We would like to also extend our utmost appreciation to our class advisor, Dr. Jocelyn Sardenia, for your continuous guidance and support, not only in this webinar, but with our journey in the graduate program. Maraming salamat po, ma'am. Buong puso kaming nagpapasalamat. And to all our participants, ladies and gentlemen, flashed on the screen right now is the QR code for the evaluation of this event. And the same link is now being added in the chat box of both FB and Zoom Live as we speak. We would highly appreciate for you to send us your feedback on this webinar. This shall also be the basis of the sending of the participants' e-certificate. Our evaluation team shall update you in your email for your e-certificates. Flash also on screen is the sample of e-certificates that you would be receiving after the completion of this evaluation. In case of any follow-up with regards to your certificates, please contact the email address being shown on screen. Okay, now, thank you, everyone. To our dear participants coming from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, and to the rest of the world, we really appreciate you being here today with us in this tripartite webinar. We really hope that you have enjoyed and absorbed all the learnings and discussions we have this afternoon. Also, thank you to our dearest guest speakers for your shared insights. On behalf of the organization team, we extend our deepest gratitude for your participation in this webinar. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am Chef Abram Emmanuel Peralta, and together with the PW Doctors of Hospitality Management students, we extend our sincerest appreciation for your support in this morning session. Please always remember that we in the hospitality and tourism industry and Academe are always at your service. Mabuhay po kayong lahat, and it's now time for the closing prayer and the singing of the PWU hymn.
Father, we give thanks that you have allowed us to work together and serve you during this meeting. We thank you for your guidance to fulfill the agenda in this meeting. We ask your blessing upon our endeavors and upon all present today. May your love and grace continue to guide us in everything that we do, today and in the future. All these we pray in the precious name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.